Well, joining me now from Knoxville, Tennessee, is Sara Hsu. She's a visiting scholar at Fudan University and also CEO of China Rising Capital Forecast, a financial technology startup covering China's financial policies and developments. Good to see you again, Sara.
Thank you.
So China's economy is often talked about as a global manufacturing superpower, but not so much one in services. Is that changing, do you think?
Well, I think to some extent it's changing. Certainly, given the atmosphere in terms of trade and goods due to the trade war between the U.S. and China, China has been resourceful in turning to more trade and services, especially knowledge-based services. And so this means that China itself has to improve its own level of services performance. And I think it's pretty exciting because it will result in China's moving from a manufacturing-based economy to more of a services-based economy, or at least some blend of the two.
So where do you see China's service sector in the next 5, maybe even 10 years? What areas do you see the most potential for growth?
Well, I think that, as I mentioned, the knowledge intensive types of services like computing, creating computer apps, financial services, and computer and information services, all of those have a lot of potential. We're already seeing an increase in demand from abroad, by firms abroad that recognize that China has improved its own development of such services and that they're now increasingly at a world-class level. Of course, China still has a ways to go in order to catch up with the developed world. But if China can continue to open up its services sector to the rest of the world, then I think it can go really far.
I'm glad you brought up the increasing demand from international sectors, because President Xi has just announced during the opening of the fair a pilot free trade zone aimed at opening up the services sector and digital economy. Talk to us about what you think that might entail and the buy-in by different countries and stakeholders.
Sure. Well, I think that, there are still some ongoing tensions between the U.S. and China in terms of digital services and, protecting intellectual property and so on. But I think that other countries would be far more open to it, such as countries that are on One Belt, One Road and some European countries. There are already several service innovation pilot zones, but I think the digital service pilot zone can be very successful, especially because China has really well-developed technologies increasingly in artificial intelligence and blockchain, cloud computing and big data, and now 5G. So I think that, there's a lot of potential for that.
Of course, we have to bring up the pandemic. I mean, how has it affected China's service industry, and how have you seen it adapting to these new challenges?
Well, it's had a negative effect on obviously every area of China's economy and other global economies. But I think that, China's services sector hasn't suffered quite as much as other areas. And in some areas, like, as I mentioned, the knowledge-intensive services sectors, they've done actually pretty good. They've experienced a boost in their growth, even despite the pandemic. So I think there's a lot of signs for increased potential of growth in those areas, and we should be hopeful.
And we are hopeful indeed. Professor Sara Hsu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.